It is 102. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Jackson Williams. The Final Four is set in the NCAA tournament. The Tennessee Vols men's basketball team had their season come to a close in the Elite Eight as they lost to the Houston Cougars 69-50 in Indianapolis yesterday. Houston joins Duke, Auburn, and Florida in the Final Four. All four teams play on Saturday in San Antonio, with Florida and Auburn tipping off at 6:09 p.m. and Houston and Duke follow them at approximately 8:49 p.m. The number one ranked Tennessee Vols baseball team won their third SEC series in as many tries, sweeping the South Carolina Gamecocks by scores of 11-7, 7-5, and 7-2 respectively. The Vols take on Tennessee Tech tomorrow for a midweek matchup before hosting Texas A&M this weekend for a rematch of last year's College World Series Finals. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation and join 1045 The Zone for a 2025 Golf Classic presented by Ferguson on Monday, June 9th at Nashville Golf and Athletic Club. Located in the heart of Cool Springs, the historic golf course features breathtaking panoramic views of the beautiful Middle Tennessee countryside. The 2025 Golf Classic will be highlighted with great food, cocktails, prizes, and special guests. Purchase your team today and choose between two flights, 8 a.m. or 1 p.m., and spend the day teeing off with us. For more information or to purchase a team, visit 1045thezone.com/events. Speaking of events, it was quite an eventful weekend for University of Tennessee. They both the women and men's basketball team exited the tournament. And let me say, the women's basketball team put up a fantastic fight. I was able to watch that down there at King's Bowling. They were playing against Texas. Incredible game. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a really great game. Valiant effort. And I hate that they lost, but I mean, I think Will put it best on Saturday. If I can find it now that I've lost
Will Bowling?
Will Bowling. He had it. I don't know where it went, but it was really great. He's just talking about the Sweet 16, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, Texas had their number. But I mean, the University of Tennessee, future is bright for the women's basketball team for sure.
Oh, no question about it. I watched pretty much the majority of that game, and I thought once they started off fast, man, and as the game continued on, Texas imposed their will, the ladies there. And, they just have too much firepower for them and too much length, really, throughout the position groups. But, man, great effort by Tennessee women's, Lady Vols to go out there and every time they went on a run, Texas answered every time. Right. I was like, dang it, there's no way they're going to beat them. They just, that's just one of those times where that team is just better than us.
They're further along in the process. This is Kim Caldwell's year one,
right? Very respectful though in their effort though.
Exactly.
I thought there was parts and times you thought, they can get them, and they didn't have enough.
I found that the fourth quarter up one.
Will said, sky's the limit for the Lady Vols under Kim Caldwell. Sweet 16 in year one is a good year. I think they have a chance to be elite next year with the recruiting class they've coming in. Excited for year two of Caldwell ball already, and I couldn't agree more.
Yes.
I mean, they were just a hard-fought game in a team that had no quit in them, and you could say the same thing to the men's basketball team. It wasn't as close as the women's game. 69-50. At halftime, the nation's top scoring defense, which is Houston, of course, held the Volunteers to 15 first-half points, the fewest in an Elite Eight game since 1979. It was also the lowest first-half scoring total by any number one or number two seed in a tourney game since seeding began that same year in 1979. So not the side of history you want to be on if you're a Tennessee Volunteer. And look, they just could not buy a shot in that first half. It was insane the amount of misses that they had and all that. I mean, I just can't believe it. I mean, Chaz Lanier and Jordan Gainey scored 17 points apiece, and I feel like in a game like that, you need a little bit more from Chaz Lanier, but they just couldn't get the shots to fall at all.
I've talked to you guys weeks. It's about making the key shots in the key moments. They could make a shot in any moment on yesterday. So ultimately, yes, you'd like to see more from Chaz Lanier. What really concerned me, which it's not really concerned anymore because the Vol season is over, was the shot selection. I felt like they were too patient at times, and at times they were being told they were being too hesitant, so they were just kind of chucking stuff up at times. It was just not the smart offensive basketball that they've played the majority of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree with both you guys, but I'm going to add this to it. The Vols men's basketball team got beat by a better Vols basketball team.
Ooh, I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, they did. They did. They were tougher. They played better defense. They stayed in front of them. They forced them to dribble, penetrate. They had bigs, no bigs. So defensively, they just kind of took over the game. And the offensive rebounding, the first half, it was just insane how many seconds.
And it was technically a home game, too. I mean, think of all the orange that was in that
in
building.
Indianapolis. Yeah, and I was thoroughly stunned by that kind of effort. I didn't realize Houston was that good. I've watched them at all. I knew they were really good, but I didn't know they were that freaking good. And then their inside presence was a big difference, too. They have enough bigs to score as well as block shots. And I thought that's why the Vols will never get over the hump until they have a guy in the post to free up the shooters. The shooters now had to create off the dribble. Chaz, that's not his deal. He is not Dalton Connect. He can shoot probably better than Dalton Connect, but he's a spot-up shooter. He is not a dribble, penetrate, create type player. And then Ziegler got caught up in he just wasn't big enough. They just had too many guys, and it was just tough for him. And Gainey was probably banging shots, but once they got a little fatigued and had to work so hard to get their shots, then they start missing the shots when they were open. So I was thoroughly just taken aback by just the dominance of Houston's, just really more so their defense, and then the slow start. 15 points at halftime? I mean, come on, man. So that's really what hurt, and it was painful because, now you think about, where Tennessee basketball is right now, and, man, they may be going through pretty much a rebuild. I don't know. I know, Jackson, you pay attention closely being an alum. Man, they're going to have to get a lot of players out of the portal, especially at the guard area and shooting.
They have to rebuild their entire backcourt because I don't think Bishop Boswell is going to be a guy who's going to be your starting one next season. And back to what you said about Houston being a better Tennessee than Tennessee. Mm-hmm. It makes so much sense because of the backgrounds of Kelvin Sampson and Rick Barnes, both North Carolina guys around the same age, came up in coaching around the same time. They have built very identical programs, and at this point in time, Houston had the better program yesterday.
Yeah, it was funny just listening. I didn't know all that story, and they did a feature there right before the game, which was incredible. I had no idea about that and how they were so connected in their friendship. But, it was one thing that Calvin Sampson said. I don't know if it plays true to Tennessee's team, but he said, I don't recruit coddled players. Yeah. We get tough-minded individuals, mentally tough. And, man, they brought it. I mean, man, and then they start doing the pressing and then double teaming. Then now they were getting free shots in the second half and they were draining them. Like, what's the guy's name? Sharp or whatever. Yeah, I don't think he made any shots really the previous games as many like that until that game, open shot. So well deserved by the Cougs. But man, I sure wish I would have saw a little bit more, especially in the paint. Yeah, man.
Well, I mean, were you guys a little surprised? Because I was that they were chasing the three-pointer in that first half. I mean, they shot 14 threes, and then they finally made the 15th one. I mean, in the first half, and they made that 15th one with 38 seconds left to get them to that 15 points. I'm just kind of thinking, it seems like their offensive game plan just fell right into the strengths of the Houston defense. And that's kind of where, I mean, we know that the defense is the trademark of Rick Barnes, but I mean, that offense chasing the threes just didn't seem like the right way to go at the time.
they got down, and I think there was a little bit of
panic.
We have to get this back now. We can't go to half down like this. So they started trying to get it back. The most points you can score in a possession is 3. So, and they've been a good 3-point shooting team all year. So they were trying a lot of 3-point shots.
And they may have forced some along the way, but yeah, they were missing open ones too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, 6 of 28 shots. I mean, the first 20 minutes of the game is
like,
insane.
What?
It was a tough watch.
Like, they have dead legs. What is happening here? It was Houston.
Yeah. I mean, Houston, it was the complete opposite of what you saw in the Kentucky game. And more to your point of what you said, it's like, they were Tennessee in Kentucky, and then they turned into Kentucky against Houston. Like, they just couldn't buy a shot at that point.
One more thing about Tennessee
Great dominance over Kentucky, by the way, too.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Great win over Kentucky.
Yeah, I called double figures, remember?
Yes, sir. And one of the ways they were able to do that against Kentucky is turnovers and being able to run in transition. Houston was not turning the ball over. They did not turn the ball over for 23 minutes of game time.
Yes.
Those Kentucky players looked like they hadn't played a game with each other. This is the first time all 10 of them, or however many played, actually played a game together, because they couldn't. Their passes weren't crisp. Yeah. They were totally off. I don't know maybe if it was the raised floor, the elevated floor, that arena kind of thing that we were talking about, the depth perception. But we noticed it, all 4 of us, my wife and my parents, were watching the game. We noticed how none of their passes looked like they were even high school level good passes. Like, they were
looked dominant versus Kentucky, man. I love what I saw there. I thought going into this game against Houston, I said, this is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a heavyweight fight. That's what it was billed as. But Tennessee, a key part of their offense is getting you off balance, running in transition, and being able to get to the line, hit, spot up threes when you're coming, like 5 seconds. They scored 5 points in 5 seconds off of a Felix Akpara putback. Zakai Ziegler gets a steal on the inbound, shoots a 3, and that pretty much ended the Kentucky game.
Yeah, but that's what, those second chance points that they were getting on those rebounds with Houston, that's what eliminated them getting free points and, fast break points or easier buckets, man. I couldn't believe it. They had 9 offensive rebounds in the first half.
Yeah.
and they were all led to points. That's 18 points. I don't know. They may have got more than that because they were shooting threes. I have no idea, but it was like, oh, man, how many times it's just like they were always a step ahead or had a little more hustle to them. Man, I couldn't believe it.
Well, we'll talk about what the future holds for the University of Tennessee basketball team, and maybe talk a little bit of the University of Tennessee football and how that relates to each other. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Season Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. And I guess what's next for Tennessee basketball? I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit in the last little bit in the opening of the show, talking about recruiting, building the team, establishing a new backcourt, and just totally rebuilding it. A lot of these players are players that are graduating and moving on. I mean, what's next for Rick Barnes in this program? And is Rick Barnes the guy that, I mean, like, obviously he's sticking around as long as he wants to, but I mean, at some point, if you're looking at rebuilding, when's that next stage coming for Rick Barnes?
Well, we can start here first. I mean, I'm going to let him go, but I just want to say this. Rick Barnes has had the most success, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the history of their men's basketball program than any coach in their history.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's start there. Now, can he get them over the hump? Now, they have to rebuild, so I don't even know if the expectations next year is just to make sure you have a real competitive roster where you're competing in the SEC. So, which is easier said than done now with the transfer portal. They're going to have to lay out some dough to make sure they get some really good players.
Is he going to be able to adapt? Is, I guess, what I'm
I think
saying.
He's slowly getting there. It's not fast enough for me.
Yeah, he's the core of this roster for a long time has been, maybe 2 or 3 star guys, but he's going to develop them and build them into core foundational pieces. Jemai Mashak, Zakai Ziegler. Right. And you're just not seeing that in college athletics. I don't know if you'll see guys like Jemai Mashak or Zakai Ziegler who stay at one school for 4 years and have the level of success that they had.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a different aspect of team building. But Rick Barnes has given me absolutely no reason to not trust what he's doing. I mean, if you look at the Tennessee basketball of old, just he's been to 2 Elite Eights in 2 years. 2 back-to-back Elite Eight appearances has never happened in this program's history.
Do you get a sense that he's even close to wanting to retire? I don't get that sense. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, by the way. I'm just talking in generalities here.
I don't. For a long time, I thought, once Zakai was done with his eligibility, maybe, but I don't think so anymore. And next week, the NCAA is having a hearing about 5th-year eligibility to give blanket 5th-year eligibility to all players.
Do you think that will extend to players that have already played? Or do you think it will be something they have put into place
I want to say it would give guys an extra year. So guys like Zakai Ziegler, Jemai Mashak, who may not have as high of NBA prospects but are really, really good college players, could come back for 1 more year.
And why are they putting that rule in?
It's kind of in response to the Diego Pavia and the Tennessee baseball player who's currently involved in the legal situation with the NCAA.
Pavia was more because it was JUCO, correct, or no?
Yes, but I think because of that ruling from the courts, they're trying to adapt and maybe just give all players a 5th year of eligibility.
A 6th year.
A 5th year.
Oh, well, you can get 5th year with the...
Well, 6th year with a red shirt, 5th year, 5 years of playing. Instead of 4 years of playing, 1 year red shirt, you can get 5 years of playing and 1 year red shirt.
That would really, I think, help this situation that the Tennessee basketball team kind of finds themselves in, right? I mean, you can bring those guys back, buy yourself time to find and develop the next way, because it feels like right now this is just bad timing for the roster in the sense of your guys that you've developed, you never really, because we talked about the depth issue for the University of Tennessee for almost all basketball season. And part of that is not having enough young players that you've developed, and maybe this will buy them some time to course correct in that situation and have guys then that can step up after next year to keep things going. Because like you said, Blaine, it's going to be really, really hard. First off, it's going to be hard to keep, I guess, your roster and your long-term development projects at school because of the transfer portal, but also because the SEC is so dang good right now. It's going to be real easy for teams to take a step back and not be able to compete in the SEC because of, I guess you could say, the the haves and the have-nots, and Tennessee has been a have for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And, I see no reason why their reputation doesn't still hold on to that, and they're still able to get recruits, still able to get transfer portals, but they're going to have to start being a little bit more aggressive in that roster construction.
Do you know, I know I put it on you, but do you know any of the players that they're recruiting for even transfer portal? I heard of a guy that they're coming in today, I think, already.
Yes, a guy from Virginia.
Yes.
He's a three-point shooter. It would be a very similar to a Chaz Lanier, Dalton Connect, 1 year, almost like a rental player in the NFL, like where you kind of, you've heard the term rental player.
Else?
Yeah, just like a 1 year guy who's going to come in. He's going to be a sharpshooter. They've had that the last 2 years. It's worked really well for them. It's been a huge component to their success, a guy that can just score.
Yeah, but they got to get a general, though. General, man. I mean, that's the hardest position to play to me. I mean, so, whoa.
And you've had an elite one Kennedy Chandler was really good while Zakai was a sixth man his freshman year. And then Zakai's taken the role his sophomore year on, and he's been nothing short of excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, not having that general point guard waiting in the wings could really hurt this team of how they've come to play basketball and the fundamental, I guess, scheme and everything of this team. It will be real interesting to see. Of course, if Zakai Ziegler does come back, he'll be known as the Hunter Renfrow of Tennessee basketball.
No, he won't.
Yes, he will. He's going to have that Social Security hitting anytime, according to the chat.
Right? Meshack would be able to.
Right.
They don't have any pure point guards committed currently. They have two commits in the 2025 class. I would guess that they're going to get veteran leadership at the point guard position in the portal. That's number one. And then I would like them to bring in a young guy that they can develop behind maybe this redshirt senior who's going to play and he can learn.
There you go. It's just going to be very interesting because this feels like an inflection point for this team, especially because of the heat and the pressure that this new SEC basketball
conference.
This domination, and now it'll be interesting to see how all the other teams, of course, basically attack the portal, do their development and all this kind of stuff. Because again, like you said, Tennessee's one of the rare breeds where they've developed a lot of guys over time. These other places are going out to San Diego State or some of these other areas of the world to try to bring in people to make their team better. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this team kind of adjusts their roster building philosophy for this new era of SEC basketball.
You're going to see it across the SEC, though.
Yeah.
Because Broome for Auburn's a senior.
Right.
Sears for Alabama's a senior. A lot of the big stars of the SEC, this was their last year. And that's a big reason why the conference was so strong, because you had all this incredible talent in their last year of college eligibility, and the league just took off.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, how this whole... Because that's what everybody's kind of talked about, right? The NIL, transfer portal, affecting the quality of basketball. And to be honest with you, I don't think it really has. And to be honest, I know it's very rare that it happens, but I am so interested by these matchups, and I love that they're all number one seeds.
Yeah.
I wish there was a Cinderella story to root for in this, but at this point, these are the four best teams in the tournament. And I'm still riding the Florida Duke. We've been a Florida Duke show.
Yep.
I think you chose Florida to win, if I'm not mistaken. I chose Duke to win.
Looks like the best team. Oh, you chose Duke.
Yeah, I took the cheap way out, I guess you could say.
Duke looks really good.
They just look unstoppable.
I picked Florida at the start of the tournament because I saw them in the SEC tournament and thought, this is a team that can absolutely win a national championship. And I hadn't watched a ton of Duke. I'd watched a little. But seeing Duke in the tournament, they've
been playing on another level.
They look, oh my God.
They look like an NBA team out there playing basketball against college teams.
Well, they have a guy who's going to be in the NBA very, very soon.
It's just, I look at it and I go, I kind of like that then all four number one seeds have been in there. I think Auburn is the weakest of the three, or the four, I guess to say. I think they're clearly the weakest of the four at this point into the tournament, for sure.
Yeah, they're kind of streaky, though, on offense. So if they get hot, I think they can play with anybody, but they're definitely going to try to lock down Bruce Pearl's team, try to lock down. But, this was, man, I'm still sticking with Florida. And then Florida over Duke. But Duke looks they look unstoppable.
Yeah.
I mean, and then Florida got lucky on their comeback. Their guy got hot there. Was it Creighton or whatever his name is?
Clayton, he was the guy against Tennessee where Tennessee would cut the lead down to 7 or 8 points, and then he would just hit a insane three-pointer.
Big shot shooter who relishes the moment. Woo.
And I'll say this. I look at this Duke-Houston game. We were kind of talking about that off air. That game seems like it's going to be fun. It's going to be very interesting to see how those philosophies clash. Can Houston's defense clamp down and come up with a way to slow down? Because you're not going to stop Cooper Flag. You just got to slow him down. Can you get him out of a
players
rhythm?
Too, man. I mean, people underestimate it. I mean, man, even though he is the trigger man, he's the point, he's the forward, but I don't know if Houston has some bigs, but the guard play, it's gonna be a heck of a matchup.
Well, Jason Smiley, and I believe this is the correct number, but I brought it up last week, and I don't have my notes in front of me, but Jason Smiley on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live is where you can interact with the show on the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV. He says Duke's average height is 6'8".
Yeah, they have length. Oh, my God.
So, I mean, like, that's just so different. And they're all athletic bigs, it feels like. I mean, there's not a slow plotter or anything like that. They all feel athletic. They all feel like they can score from the perimeter. And I know that's not true, but it just feels that way. It just feels that this entire team this Duke team can find so many ways to beat you with the same type of player.
I love their execution. When Shires calls out a play, and I remember when he was a player because he was a three-point shooter there at Duke, when he called out plays, and he did it a handful of times, their execution and the counter on their plays was to perfection. I hadn't seen a team do that, just routinely play in and play out. It was just like, wow. These guys, they understand what their responsibilities are, and they execute to a T. So that's going to be tough for anybody to beat, but I'm still sticking with my Florida, though.
Well, I mean, Florida's just, they're good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they may not
They look like the college team.
Yeah.
My man, he did well. But look at him and then look at Cooper Flag, right?
Right.
Yeah, I keep wanting to call him Connor Flag. I don't know why, but yeah, Cooper Flag. And you go, those are two different players.
Yeah.
Two different type of players.
It's just so interesting to watch Florida's bench just continue to contribute so much to that team's success. And to me, that's what makes basketball fun.
I do. I love it.
Is like when you get so many different players. Some of Memphis's best teams when I was in college, with Derrick Rose and all them, they were 6 or 7 guys deep. They may not all play, in the NBA, but they had a good bench and a good rotation. But their starting 5 could play for so long. Then they bring in people under the bench while everybody else is really tired. Because their big thing was all about conditioning. We're going to out-condition you. And I've always just thoroughly enjoyed some of the bench players that came off the bench at Memphis. And to me, this Florida team, not the same style of team as those Memphis teams, but they're a team that they just seem like one unit. And it just seems like no matter who they put in there, you're going to find ways to score points. And you're going to get creative with the whole thing.
Fun fact about that 2007-2008 Memphis team, after the NCAA investigation, only one game for that season counted. Any idea what that game was, Zach?
Oh, my.
It was a 66-62 loss to Tennessee in Memphis.
Yep. I believe.
Oh, was it?
Yes, sir.
And I believe Dane Bradshaw played that game because he's my nemesis. He's been my nemesis since high school. I know he's a frequent guest on Ramon, Kalo, and Will, but he played at Frazier, which is in Memphis, by the way, and they played our high school here in Murfreesboro at their basketball arena, and we gave him lots of hell from the fans in the stands, and he gave it back, and then he went to University of Tennessee, and I went to University of Memphis, and just enemies.
May need to have him on to settle this one-sided beef.
Yeah. He has no clue who I am. He may remember our group because it was, the high school, championship or tournament or whatever, but he definitely has no clue who I am. That's for sure. But I've never liked him. But it's not just basketball. For basketball reasons, not personal reasons. Basketball reasons.
Seems like a very nice guy.
I'm sure
Yes, he does.
I'm sure he is. I dislike a lot of nice guys, so just how it happens. I'm a generational hater.
It's just in your blood, huh?
It's just in my blood.
Oh.
Just in my blood.
And it still bleeds red.
It does. There you go. Crimson red. All right. So at the end of the day, what are the expectations, Jackson, from a fan perspective for the University of Tennessee? What is your way too early expectations for this basketball team?
I need to see the portal roster additions. I need to see what this team looks like because right now the cupboard's not very full. So I need to see what they do in the portal, what they do in recruiting, which I think they'll do well in, to be able to build a team. I would expect another NCAA tournament berth. How far they go, I wouldn't expect another top 4 seed. They might be a 5 through 8 seed, but I would expect them to definitely make the tournament next year.
But they did reach their potential this year, though.
Yes, we talked about that. Mm-hmm. Elite Eight was where they needed to hit this season. That was the expectation. As a 2 seed, that is your expectation to go to the Elite Eight. It
was White Station, not Frazier, for Dane Bradshaw, being told by Ron Slay in the chat, and also M3 Sanders as well. Listen, that was 2002. That was a long time ago for me to remember that. But I thought it was Frazier. Let me ask you this. Which loss was worse? Because I know that Lucas and them asked the fans last night, or the last show. Which loss is worse, Jackson, in your mind? The college football playoffs or this Elite Eight trouncing?
And I was stunned when I answered that because I pushed the loss to Tennessee in football to Ohio State. And it was losing.
I would put the Elite Eight over it.
Why?
Because Tennessee, there's a lot of people who have seen Tennessee win a national championship. There's not a person on this earth who's seen Tennessee make a Final Four.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, I never really thought of it that way.
We have never seen the Tennessee Volunteers go to the Final Four, and we have been right there 2 years in a row. You have to win one more game over the past 2 seasons, and Tennessee makes their first Final Four appearance. Last year, I think the only team Tennessee really could not beat was Purdue, and that's who they matched up against in the Elite Eight.
What do you think? I mean, from a perspective,
I thought it was football, and maybe it's more because the way they got beat.
Yeah.
They got hammered.
I mean, they got hammered on this one, too.
I think you knew this team was really good. Mm-hmm. How far could they go, and could they get over Snout and make it to the Final Four?
Yeah.
So I think that was it. I thought there were up and downs in the football team, and the quarterback play, and the offensive line. But, man, I thought they'd rise to the occasion and not get beat like that. That was almost like they didn't deserve to be there.
Yeah, Thomas West says it's 100% football because the expectation was to win. Basketball, we reached our expectation. The difference is basketball is just more fresh right now.
I don't know if there was a lot of hype around that Ohio State game, but expecting Tennessee with a freshman quarterback to go into Columbus, Ohio and win.
That was his second year, right?
But he's a first-year starting redshirt freshman.
Yeah, the redshirt freshman. That's my least favorite thing about college football. He's now played in a game. I mean, he played in a game the prior year. You can't that's like the Will Levis thing. Well, this is really Will Levis's first year playing football, because he was only a little bit of a starter last year. I'm out on that. That's just a personal beef. I understand why people say that's personal.
It is a young quarterback.
It is.
And he's going into one of the most hostile environments, a team that has seen the college football playoff before. This was Tennessee's first appearance in the college football playoff. This was their second trip to the Elite Eight in the last 2 years. So many players that were on last year's Tennessee basketball team played yesterday in the Elite Eight.
I got a question for you both when we come back. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee for your European car repair needs now for 26 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the Barnum's backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you also get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. And always tell them Blaine said you.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation. So we talked about the expectations for the 2025 men's basketball team. What are the expectations for the 2025 men's football team in your perspective? Because I'm talking from the fans' perspective with Jackson. You just saw your team go to the playoffs, and we were talking about which loss was worse. I mean, is it playoffs or bust, or your expectations set a little lower knowing that there has been so much roster turnover?
I think it's still the playoffs.
Still the playoffs.
You still should be one of those top 12 teams with this roster you've built, with your quarterback firmly in place, who's been starting for over a year now. the expectation should be to make the 12-team playoff for a second year in a row.
So let me ask you this, Blaine. It's harder to make the college football playoffs than it is to get into the tournament.
Yes.
Do you think that is too high of an expectation? I mean, obviously Elite Eight for Rick Barnes, but you really want to get to the Final Four. Here it's just like you just kind of want to get into the college football playoffs, but seems like a really high expectation for something that's a lot tougher.
Mm-hmm. I think there will be exceptions to the rule if they didn't make it. You got to set the goal to at least make the playoffs when you're Tennessee. Any of these SEC middle class and up, their goal is, in football is always to make the playoffs and then whatever happens there. So I think the goal's there. But if you come up short and you're ranked in the top 15 and you're just one of the two teams that were kind of dabbling but just didn't make it, I think that's okay as well. But you got to set the goal to make the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. Especially you're a Tennessee pro. I mean, that's the only expectation. Alabama would be the same way. Theirs is probably we got to win a national championship.
They probably have told Caleb DeBoer it's time to win a championship or GTFO.
And just imagine him, man. I was like, what? I mean, man. The expectation is always going to be high in football when you're in the SEC.
Do you all think they have the coaches to exceed expectations or just the coaches to meet expectations?
In football or basketball?
Both.
Oh, both. Ooh. Oh, man, I'm not sure. Until they do it, do you really believe that they can?
Yeah.
I think if you can ask Jackson, all the Vols fan base, battered Vols syndrome, I think none of them believe it because it hasn't ever happened. So until it happens, and at least in football, they won it, late 90s?
98.
98. So, I think that's kind of where we're at now in this new modern era of football and basketball. Until you see that they got, some elite level players and they start, tapping out the door, boom, 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 I just don't know if they really believe it. Do y'all really believe that y'all can win a national championship with those coaches you have?
In football?
And both.
It's getting harder for me to say I can expect one in basketball with the BVS. I think Rick Barnes is a capable head coach of winning a national championship, but do I think it's going to happen at Tennessee? Not at this point. I think he's more than capable, and it could very well happen.
Well, how do you feel about football?
I think Heupel's also capable of doing it, but I haven't seen it. He's made the playoffs once. It was not the best showing. I don't think it was a great matchup for Tennessee. I think the playoffs is going to become very matchup-centric in college football, much like it is basketball. So if Tennessee gets the right matchups in the college football playoff where they can, be better aligned with their opponent, then yes, Josh Heupel can absolutely win a national championship at Tennessee.
It's interesting because I agree with that premise. But I do remember us all having conversations on all the shows talking about, is it better to win the SEC tournament? Is it better to be a 5th or 7th seed or, an 11th or 12th and all that kind of stuff because there's no reseeding. Has that changed for you guys after seeing 1 year of college football playoffs? Like, what's better for a team like Tennessee? Is it better to win the SEC championship or is it better to maybe be in that 6th or 7th seed and kind of luck into, kind of going to the 4th round or to the 4th best team or something like that?
I think it was tough being an 8th seed and getting Ohio State. I think that was the toughest draw of, obviously, because they won the national championship. So that's just a tough draw that sometimes that's going to happen in this new college football format. It's going to happen even more when they go to 16 teams. It's going to become so matchup centric in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I love your premise about the basketball and football and the matchup centric, but if you build your teams correctly, if Rick Barnes would have built where he had a guy in the post who was an impact player, then you don't worry about your matchups. You will match up because they'll have to match up with you.
Yeah.
See, so you got to build a balanced roster, got to build a balanced team. If we can beat you by running the football, if not, if you stop our run and do everything you can, guess what? We can air it out and make you stop all of that, and then you're going to have to take a guy out of the box. So you have to build your rosters. When you're in SEC now with NIL, you can pay to get the players.
Yeah.
So now you got to build a balanced roster where you can beat them in any way that's fit.
And again, like you said, that goes for both basketball and and football. Why do you think that maybe these two teams have struggled with that in the Rick Barnes era? It's just specifically, I know they have struggled with it
you
before.
hit and miss on some guys in basketball.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
But what about the football?
If they
as
would have
well?
had Adu, which a lot of people did like, but just imagine if he was on this roster.
Or if JP Estrella doesn't get hurt, a 7-footer that they had in the post, he was going to be a starter for Tennessee, gets hurt early in the season and is out for the year. He's just now getting back to the point where he's able to run again. So, having him in the post might have made a difference.
Change stuff.
And so it's about, you're going to have to acquire depth in an era where acquiring depth is going to be the most challenging because of the NIL and transfer portal.
That is true.
Because they didn't just have another 7-footer behind JP Estrella to bring in those situations where teams are really deep in the post.
It's very interesting because I find Tennessee to be good case studies in roster building, both sports, because of how NIL is going to work. I mean, Alabama's kind of not. I guess, Ohio State, everybody talks about the talent that they built on the roster. A lot of that has to do with NIL funding. I know that Alabama is not as NIL wealthy, I guess I would say, as other teams. So they're kind of in this weird crossroads. Of course, they have a part of that. The reason why they're in this crossroads is because of a new head coach. But I just find the roster building philosophies of Tennessee and how those expectations are laid upon these teams. And then sometimes they're able to kind of meet them. Sometimes they're kind of able to exceed them. But at the same time, when they get beat in these sports, they get beat pretty bad because they have glaring holes on the roster. We talked about all last year about the Tennessee football team, the pressure that they have allowed on Nico, but Nico not being able to have consistency in being the guy that they paid for. And then we talked about Rick Barnes and the depth. Some of that's injury, a player or two left in the transfer portal. But again, those are things that you kind of have to try to mitigate with good planning and good roster building. It just kind of feels that both those teams have fallen short at critical moments. And maybe that is the narrative that, hey, here we are in the big spot. And there's a reason why it's BVS, right? Bader-Vall syndrome, is because they kind of fail in the critical spots because of the things that we talk about all year long during those seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, who's the GM for the Vols in football?
I don't know if they have a GM. I mean, Danny White has a lot of he keeps a lot of control over hiring and firing coaches, which is not what we're seeing in other areas of college football like Stanford. Andrew Luck is the general manager, and he's in charge of hiring and firing coaches.
What's his name? Bart is at Vanderbilt. So that's why I was asking, like, who's over the recruiting in football? Do they have one guy, like, who's over that? I know you're talking about, but I think it may have to get to that because there's always holes on their roster. And soon somebody gets hurt, it's like you don't have a back. Dude, you're Tennessee. There's supposed to be another guy sitting there waiting.
Tennessee's director of recruiting for football is Trey Johnson, and he has been there one season.
Oh.
That's just going to be interesting. We'll just be a good talking point to kind of, come back to and assess as the seasons go on these sports. When we come back, we got the NFL owners meeting happening down in West Palm Beach. We got a couple of clips. We got Mike Bergonzi talking about Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan all talking about football. But also there's one other team that had something interesting to say about their quarterback situation that may affect the Tennessee Titans. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone.
What'd you
It is 2:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. The Final Four is set in the NCAA tournament. The Tennessee Vols men's basketball team had their season come to a close in the Elite Eight as they lost to the Houston Cougars 69-50 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Houston joins Duke, Auburn, and Florida in the Final Four. All four teams play on Saturday in San Antonio, with Florida and Auburn tipping off at 6:09 p.m. and Houston and Duke follow them at approximately 8:49. In NFL news, the Buffalo Bills and cornerback Christian Benford agreed to a 4-year, $76 million extension over the weekend. The 2022 sixth-round pick out of Villanova started 15 games for Buffalo in 2024 and snagged 2 interceptions. For our foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation. And the owners' meeting's going on. Head coaches, GMs are down there. Of course, President of Football Operations is also down there. Chad Brinker, of course, owners as well.
The owners playing there, too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe I'll you know what? I'll have to put that in, see if I can see if she's down there. So over the weekend, Will Levis's name was brought up over at TennesseeTitans.com in an interview with Jim Wyatt. Chad Brinker said the Titans have not had trade talks with anyone about quarterback Will Levis, contrary to a report earlier this month, which the report was from Josina Anderson. He goes, I quote, "That's a false report," Titans President of Football Operations Chad Brinker said from the NFL owners meeting on Sunday. "We have not contacted anybody, and nobody has contacted us about Will Levis. I don't think anything has changed from the time somebody asked me about this a month ago." Now, I want to stop at this part because he does talk about what's the plan with Will Levis and all that kind of stuff, and that's just kind of like more generic, like, we're drafting Cam Ward, so, you know, here's some good tidbits of Will Levis.
Is that what it is?
But, yeah. But okay. I do think there is some truth to this. Now, I know it's line season and everything. The reason I think that nobody has contacted them is because I do think teams that are looking for a backup quarterback are going to see how those first 2 or 3 rounds go in the draft. Because I do think that there are going to be teams that come calling on day 3 about the availability of Will Levis, but they're going to wait and see what happens with Jalen Milroe. Where's Tyler Shuck? How high is Kyle McCord on our board? Does Jackson Dart go in the first round? They're waiting to see the draft dominoes fall before they go into the, hey, let's call a team with a young quarterback and try to acquire a young guy that we can try and develop that maybe they have given up on.
No, it makes a lot of sense there. And even if that doesn't work, maybe even the Titans, from the Titans' view, they play him a lot in the preseason. Then he increases his value, whether it's 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, kind of a la Malik Willis. So, I don't think they're actually. I actually want him on the roster. I just don't know if his camp, and that would be his agent, would want him to be a part of all of that and then sit on the bench all season.
And maybe that's why we haven't heard anything from his camp, because maybe they are waiting to see, what if someone does offer them a historic call? Doesn't that mean that your client, Will Levis, is going to be there? So why rock the boat now? But I bet once that Cam Ward pick comes through, if we don't hear it by the end of night 1, we may hear it the morning of day 2. Hey, Will Levis has requested a trade. Like, I could totally see how that's going to go down. But here's an interesting team. And when Will Levis was initially brought up and all this kind of stuff, I kind of linked him to the Cowboys. And here's what Stephen Jones, executive vice president of the Dallas Cowboys, said on the Cowboys backup quarterback position. Easy for me to say. He said, "We will evaluate the whole situation. You're always wanting to have a young guy coming. That's always a preference. And certainly that's something we'll look at in the draft, is to see if there's a young guy to start bringing along." Obviously, we were focused on Trey Lance there when we traded for him, and he was our young guy, if you will, that we were bringing along. But all those things that we will start to evaluate with this draft. Coach Schottenheimer, Coach Shimko, and Clayton Adams, and that group, what's available out there, what's going to be in the draft, and make the best decision in terms of what we're going to have behind Dak. Because right now, the Cowboys do not have a true worthy backup quarterback. I think Will Grier is the guy behind them, and they're looking to upgrade it. But I thought it was interesting that they're waiting to see what happens in the draft before they make a decision, because that could be a team that could take a chance on Jalen Milroe, right, if he falls to them in the second round. And maybe that is where they kind of lean, as they go with a Jalen Milroe, or maybe Jackson Dart falls, or maybe they're Tyler Shuck people. Who knows? But I think they're waiting to see if one of those guys in that second tier, third tier of quarterbacks falls. And if not, they may be the people come calling, or maybe you call them to kind of figure out, hey, can we get a deal for Will Levis done with you guys?
I don't know their needs as far as the Cowboys and what they need. I don't see them drafting the quarterback in the second round. That would be a little bit surprising for me. But later in the draft, absolutely. And if they can't get someone then maybe they give up, a fifth, sixth, seventh round for Will Levis. I could see that being a possibility, and kind of sit behind him and see what he can do. So, and then, if it doesn't work out, just like Trey Lance, then no harm, no foul. I didn't give up too much. So
it'll be interesting to see, because
system, I think, Schottenheimer's system, I think he kind of fits Will Levis a little bit.
Yeah. I look at pick 76. So the Cowboys have no fourth-round picks. So you're looking, if you were looking to maybe think of this being done in realistic possibility, that, hey, that maybe Will Levis and Dallas Cowboys, there's a trade to be worked out there. You're calling around pick number 76 in the third round. The other thing is they have 3 fifths. So can you get 2 fifths for Will Levis? Because they have 3 fifths, 2 sixths, and 2 sevenths. So maybe you get 2 fifths for Will Levis, or do you get 1 fifth for Will Levis? But I do feel like the thing that hurts this the most is that they have no fourth-round pick. I feel like the Tennessee Titans would want a fourth-round pick for Will Levis.
Let's change this around.
Okay.
If you're the Titans, you'd give a team 2 fifths for Will Levis.
I mean, I wouldn't, but I mean, listen.
Right, exactly.
But let me say something. But we've seen what Dallas Cowboys have traded.
I know, you're right. But I would give up 1 fifth. And matter of fact, I would keep all mine and say, I'll give you a 2026 fifth.
Yeah. I mean, remember, they traded for Jonathan Mingo for a fourth round pick.
They must not understand how to, value the trades, man. So they go off a feel.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. Let's go back to what he said about this whole Will Levis situation, right? What's the plan with Will Levis? The plan with Will Levis is he has a chance to compete for a starting job next year. That has been their, just pause right there. That has been what they've said all offseason. So this should be no surprise they continue to say this. And that's like every player that's on our roster. It's no different for Will. I see him in our facility. He's working hard. Everybody knows he's a great kid. He's a hard worker, and he's going to give it everything he has. And we're going to continue with work with Will Levis. And listen, again, this goes back to the other thing. I kind of agree that I agree with Chad Brinker that nobody has contacted us about Will Levis. I would assume that's probably true. Maybe that's just more of an indictment on Will Levis than we think. And nobody's interested in him. But I do agree. If he's here on your roster, he has every chance to compete, right? I mean, like, this is just common sense stuff right there. Nothing, I think, that says that changes anything about where they're leaning for pick 101.
Okay, I'm going to give you a scenario, and I want you to tell me, what would you do? You take Cam Ward. You got Cam, Will Levis, and the other Yahoos. Allen.
Yeah, Allen and Boyle.
Yeah.
the other guys.
So who's doing number 1 reps?
Cam Ward. Yeah, and I don't.
Wait.
Because remember, they kind of said that Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis were competing for the backup spot. Remember, in quotation marks.
That definitely was not true.
Right.
But we all know that. But let's go back the year before. Do you think they felt like they made a mistake just handing Will Levis the job instead of having him compete? And that's why everybody's having the issue with who is on the roster as a quarterback, because there's nobody who's even a threat Now, if
That
you
is
want to
true.
say Will Levis is a threat, well, you've already drafted number 1, so he is not a threat. Obviously, you feel like it's a need. So then now you're handing him the job. So guess what you're also doing? Not putting any pressure on him right now.
Yeah.
And guess what? The pressure is going to ratchet up to a whole barbaric level once he gets out there during the game, and then you better be ready. So how do you make it competitive for your first pick of the draft if you take Cam?
That's true. There is an issue with that. And that's not to say that even Will Levis could make it competitive, but I
Right,
mean,
that's
he
what I'm
could.
saying.
He could.
Maybe he could, but I'm just saying that you've already.
But the only way you can do that, do you think the only way you can do that is by giving him first team reps at a certain point? You stop it, then you go full force, like kind of like, oh, they're splitting reps in the first week of training camp or OTAs, and then it changes.
Right, but you know where it's going. But yes, and they did the same thing with Washington with Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota. Everybody's like, well, but he's showing that he's the dude. So eventually they just said, all right, he's ready. Because, see, there's a thing about giving somebody something when you're the number 1 and saying, hey, let's work through it and let's see all your teammates that you earned it.
Yeah. Because like you said, every player has that chance to get a starting job. Now, listen, that's kind of yes and no, right? Like every player has the opportunity, but not every player can do it.
Right.
And not every player is capable of winning the starting job. But you want to foster that competition, like you said, because iron, as what does it say? The oldest thing, iron sharpens iron. Now, I don't know how sharp the iron is for Will Levis, but again, I agree with you. Even if he's just a Jarrett Stidham or Marcus Mariota level player in Will Levis, that's still better than what you have with Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle. Because, I mean, those guys, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but they are what they are.
Right. Yeah, they've been in the league
and at least with Will Levis, you may have still someone that can prove to be, and maybe he's going to be a willing participant. If he really feels that he has a chance to prove everybody wrong and win the job, maybe he doesn't request a trade, right? Maybe he believes everything that they have told them, and even though they draft Cam Ward, he's willing to be a good soldier and try to go win this out on the battlefield.
The Titans is that he comes at a cheap price too.
Yeah,
this talent. You could say, well, worst case scenario, he's a backup,
right? And you have a cheap backup.
Right. See, so it benefits the Titans. So I'm just interested to see how they go about this dynamics with the quarterback, because obviously the number 1 pick, you need all the reps you can get.
Yeah.
So splitting the reps is not going to be benefiting me either. So then you get caught in this, mechanism of, okay, are we going to just hand him the job, or is we going to let him compete for the job?
I think it starts off with like OTAs splitting. If Will Levis is still on the team, splitting some reps, and I think maybe
if
1
the Titans
week
take Cam.
Yeah, and the Titans take Cam, and I think maybe you get into 1 week of training camp, 1 week of mini camp, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to start leaning towards Cam Ward, and then that becomes where Will Levis is your backup quarterback. And if he's your backup quarterback, I think I would rather have him than Brandon Allen, because everybody wants to play it safe. But Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle, they don't really give you any upside as a team. So I at least would rather have Will Levis. Some coaches were
just like, he's the number 1 pick. He's got to be ready. We're going to put him out there and get as many reps as possible. I don't have an issue with it. I'm just wondering what their thought process is with it.
When we come back, there's a statement in the chat that I want to get to about turning in the card on Cam Ward. Then we'll also hear what they had to say about Cam Ward, talking about Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, and Mike Bergonzi live. Not live, but down there at the owners' meeting. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone.
Struggling with joint pain, suffering from a recent injury, looking to recover faster after surgery? Well, at Edge, we've got you covered. From powerful peptide stacks like BPC 157, TB500 to PRP treatment, stem cell therapy, and high-film muscle stimulation, Edge Peptide is your go-to solution for faster healing and recovery. And as an athlete myself, I know how frustrating pain and injuries can be. That's why now is the perfect time to take control of your wellness and finally address those nagging issues. Whether it's golf, tennis, or any activity you love, don't let pain hold you back any longer. Edge specializes in regenerative treatments designed to reduce inflammation, promote tissue repair, and improve mobility, helping your body heal naturally while avoiding surgery whenever possible. And right now, we're offering a free $250 consultation with your initial treatment. And all you have to do is just go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can just give them a call today at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
We've got the trucks, all the trims, all the towing, all the bells and whistles, and all at Truck Month Savings. Two Rivers Ford is Ford Truck Central.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. And 1045 The Zone is teaming up again with the Nashville Sounds for Winning Wednesday during the 2025 season. Sign up online or listen on select Wednesdays for chances to win Sounds tickets. For more info or to enter, visit 1045thezone.com/contest. And there's a question in the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, where you can also interact with us. And I want to get your thoughts on this, Blaine, because we were talking about the quarterback competition, and Dixie says, as soon as you turn the card in to draft Cam Ward, the Will Levis project is over. All resources and decisions are in Cam Ward's best interest. Mm-hmm. Now, regardless of who quarterback is, all resources and all decisions go into surrounding the quarterback with the best team and the best team for you to compete. So I kind of look at this and I get what he's saying, but whether it's Will Levis or whether it's Cam Ward, if you don't use your resources around the quarterback situation, it doesn't matter who's going to be at quarterback. Like this offensive line was built for the quarterback, not just for Cam Ward, not just for Shadur Sanders, not just for Will Levis, Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle, whoever you want to throw in there, is built with the protecting the Titans quarterback in mind.
Mm-hmm. No, I think what your idea was about kind of gradually putting him in the lineup, as training camp gets going. That means he's had a lot of reps. He's not going to be ready initially. And the reason why I say that is all we need to do is say one name and one team right down the road. Indianapolis coach Anthony Richardson. He wasn't ready. Now, two different quarterbacks who once played a lot in college and one didn't. But let's just say this. Sometimes when you earn something with your players and teammates seeing you do it is different than it being handed, and then you go out there, you set him up for failure. And I'm not just talking about that he will make misses in practice. Then you say, let's gradually get him there, and then when he's ready, then we flip the switch and then put him as a starter, let's say 2 weeks into training camp. That way he gets his feet wet when they're here by themselves and they're just the young players. The coaches are working with them. Then they have OTAs a couple times. Then he's kind of getting more comfortable and feeling like it's college again as far as the playbook. You put him in a position where he can have success instead of just handing it to him. See, so that's where I say that is because that's, to me, the mistake they did with Will Levis. See, they made an assumption by watching film and thinking we should just hand him the job and then everything is over, right? No, that's not how it works. So, I get it. He's the first pick. You would presume and assume that he will win the job, but don't just throw him in there like that. Right. Sometimes it's a little bit different. And some coaches have different. They know him a lot better than I do. And they understand who he is and what makes him tick. So if they believe that, then I'm all behind it. But you just got to be careful with that, especially at the quarterback, because he's going to be the culture builder for your organization.
Right.
So there's a lot of tentacles to that, not just playing.
Yeah, and I do think Brian Callahan talked about it in an interview with Paul Kaharski, paulkaharski.com, is that essentially his experience, Cam Ward's experience and ability, again, this is something that we've talked about ad nauseum. But learning different offenses, building different cultures, being a tone setter no matter where he went is just such a unique thing to have for this type of player. And he says, now you'll start seeing this more now that more players are going to be transferring, more players are going to be staying a little bit longer and gaining more experience, and you're going to see big jumps. So I do think there is a level of comfortability that and whether this is right or wrong, that they're going to let Cam Ward, if they draft him, come in and set the culture. Because obviously Brandon Allen shouldn't be your culture setter. And Tim Boyle shouldn't be your culture setter. Will Levis, we'll see what the plans are for Will Levis. I'm not as convinced as some people that he's going to be on this roster for long. But I do wonder, with Cam Ward, are they going to put too much on him right at the beginning? Or is that really just, because I view it like this. He's done it. We've seen him do it. He should be able to do it in the pros. But again, everything is so much different in the pros.
Yeah. And that's my concern. And they only would know that. And so that's their call. But I just think, you need to hesitate. I don't want people panic if that doesn't happen immediately. And so I think naturally he's the number one guy, and then they're in a rebuilding situation. So eventually he will be that guy. It's just a matter of when they decide to do that. Some coaches will be like, nope, we're going to throw him. Like if this was Sean Payton, he'd be like, I'm putting him in the starter right now.
Yeah.
Right. You just got to be careful, because here's what could happen. Right off the bat, who is going to be the better quarterback? Who knows the system?
Right.
Will Levis will be. And see, so then if you let...
He has the leg up.
He has the leg up in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
See, and that's why I said I would gradual. Because guess what? The teammates are looking at, oh, Will Levis is better this year. He looks different. And then if he is running the twos, all of a sudden they're going to watch film and they see it in practice. They go, uh-oh, something ain't right here. And then all of a sudden they keep him out there and Cam Ward, and then he has some snafus. And then everybody's looking around like, I think we should put Will Levis out there.
Yeah.
See? So that's what you're trying to guard against, the belief from the players if he makes some mistakes early on. And you want those mistakes being done as the number two, and then gradually he starts escalating and putting his old mojo and his culture and who he is out there, and they go, uh-oh, that's our dude. So you want to put him in a position of success instead of then now he's, below, and that will have to fight to beat the other guy, and then he earns it, then everybody says he's our dude. So that's just something that happens. But sometimes it happens sooner or later. I think Caleb Williams was the same way. I think they kind of eased him in training camp just like they did with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like the right way. That's what you got to do. They gave the reins to Anthony Richardson.
They did.
And they gave, it's not a rookie quarterback, but they gave the reins to Will Levis.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas even with Bo Nix, he still had to, quote unquote, have a quarterback battle with Jarrett Stidham. That's something that they established. He's going to be battling. We saw, again, you brought it up earlier, the Commanders, Marcus and Jaden. They won their battles fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But look at Drake May and Jacoby Brissett, right? They gave the reins to Jacoby Brissett to start. And you may be able to argue that maybe that probably kind of sealed that fate up there in New England. So while there is no perfect place or perfect situation and process, more often than not, just giving the illusion, even if we know there's no real quarterback battle, giving that illusion and kind of making it seem like that does usually yield successful quarterbacks.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Okay, so let's move to this. Let's hear from Brian Callahan at the breakfast this morning, and he was talking about Cam Ward this morning. This is a video from Jim White, question from Teron Davenport, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I feel really good about that. We spent a lot of time with him between the 30 visit, the combine, the pro day, and then the private. So we've had all of our possible touch points. We have a couple more hours of Zoom left to us per league rules, and we'll use all of those touch points that we get. And I feel really good about what we've learned and how we've learned it. He's an impressive young man, and excited to kind of get through the rest of the process.
A lot of the questions, of course, are going to revolve around Cam Ward from here on in. But I do think it's interesting that it seems to me that they're going to use also the virtual meeting. So they are going to hit every touch point allowed with them on Cam Ward. So the virtual meeting, the pro day meetings, the private workout, the combine, anything that's available to them, they're going to use. Is that, to me, what does that say about their faith in Cam Ward to you? I feel like it doesn't really say one way or the other. I think they're pretty much decided about Cam Ward, but I'm maybe a little Cam Ward drunk at this point. I'm just blacking out about Cam Ward. So where do you feel when you hear that? Because some people have kind of turned this into, because he obviously also said that the Titans are open for business, right? Brian Callahan, that same breakfast, said the Titans are open for business, which again, I don't think that means anything in relation to Cam Ward. But do you think that there's still hesitation about what Cam Ward could be?
If I was guessing what the organization thinks, I think they think this is pretty much a done deal unless somebody brings a haul. That's really it. And that's what leaves certain amount of percentage there that, hey, if somebody brings us a haul down, this may be a little bit different. So other than that, I think, he's the guy. Yeah, they've convinced me anyway, reading between all the tea leaves. Like, to me, right here, Callahan, to me, should have been saying, we love Cam Ward. Because he is the number one player, but maybe they may think other people think Travis Hunter is, or Abdul Carter, or I think at this point there's still a lot of time, but man.
So you're kind of ready for the declaration.
Yeah, I think because what does it hurt at this point?
Yeah. Because if you come out and just say that you love Cam Ward, doesn't that also make the people that are likely to trade up with you, who are likely trading up for Cam Ward, a little bit more desperate?
Right. That's kind of how I'll be playing it. So, but they play their hand the way they want to, and they've kind of timed it up until this point. They've kind of built up. They're going through their process, but at this point in time, I think it's pretty clear cut. So I would be pushing that he's the guy. That way, if somebody wanted to trade up, they start getting antsy and really nervous.
You go back to the Bengals, right, with the Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. And that year that he was coming out of the draft, it was probably from the analyst perspective, from the fan perspective, I think we all knew Joe Burrow was going to be the number one overall pick. I'm sure that Joe Burrow's camp knew that he was going to be the overall pick. I mean, obviously, came out that he was actually told on Wednesday before the draft that he was going to be the number one overall pick. So, obviously, everybody kind of knew it was trending that direction, but they never came out and said it. But I was reading some articles today around that time about how they were still, hey, you never know if a trade offer comes through.
Right.
And we know with really Bryce Young, it was the worst kept secret that he was going to the Panthers, but they never really came out and declared Bryce Young was the guy. Remember, there was still Will Levis going number one overall talks at the time. Caleb Williams feels like it's the rare exception, and Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence. So do we think that maybe this is just how the NFL goes, but we're a little bit closer to it? We just kind of want to hear it at this point?
Well, I don't know if I want to hear it, but I would be, talking as just like I talk on air. Cam Ward is our guy, and somebody brings a haul, we're always open for business. So that's putting them all on notice to other teams. If you want to come to get this guy, then this is, yeah. I mean, to me, there's nothing wrong with saying that at this point in time. So maybe they're not there all the way, or they just want to keep it open and never say that. That's their style, I would say. You're convinced more than me. I still think there's a possibility somebody's going to trade up. I just think they're playing it a little bit wrong. If you really want somebody to bring a haul, then you got to play it up.
Yeah,
you got to play it up. You got to talk about him. You got to he's our guy.
It's really interesting. So in the car business, let's say that someone really wants to buy a car, right? But you that someone, you have the last red car, and someone really wants a red car. You're kind of like, well, this is our last one. I don't know if we really want to sell it for cheap. You're trying to play that game. So like the quarterback, this is your last quarterback, right? Now, yes, I understand that Shedeur Sanders is out there, but there's a lot of talk out there that Shedeur Sanders is a clear number 2 to Cam Ward. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but there is a lot of talk out there. So I wonder if you're right, the Tennessee Titans should just come out and just declare it to also build up. Because really, what is the harm if there does end up being a trade? You ended up with a haul worthy of trading out of a guy that you love anyway. It's kind of a win-win scenario for the Tennessee Titans, right?
Right, yeah. And that's kind of how I view it. So I don't think it maybe they're just not all the way there, and that's why they won't. And then the people who are in those positions to actually say it, which is Brinker and Bergonzi, they are not. They're at 98%.
Yeah,
so they're not going to say it. So that's probably what's it. I don't think Coach Callahan is ever going to say anything about it as far as anything that we could grasp onto.
Right, Jackson.
What do you two remember about the process when the Titans had the number 2 overall pick in 2015 when they drafted Marcus?
I remember I was hoping they were going to trade that pick for Phillip Rivers. But, I mean, it was pretty I'm trying to remember what the stuff was coming out of Tampa Bay, because obviously Tampa Bay was the number 1 overall pick, and they had Jameis Winston. Ooh, man, that's a good question. I would need a refresher on that because there's been a lot of beers since then. So I got to be honest, there's a little hazy.
Well, I think it was established that Winston and Mariota were the two top quarterbacks, and they were going to go 1-2. Who was going to go one? And who was going to go two? So
I feel like Jameis Winston got decided fairly early for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I want to say it was because he was a Florida guy.
Yeah.
I feel like there was talk of the Titans not taking a quarterback at 2.
Well, there were talks at the time of them trading out of the pick for Phillip Rivers. I remember that because I was really hoping that was going to come to fruition. Because I remember that day specifically hearing those rumors start popping up, and I'm like, because apparently the Chargers at the time really liked Marcus, and there were talks of, and I think Phillip Rivers was due for a contract coming up soon, and I really was hoping that rumor. I don't remember how substantive it was, if it was actually a real thing, but man, if it was, that's who I wanted. I wanted hey, I'll trade back and pick up some extra picks and take Phillip Rivers.
Yeah. And to me, in that situation, I want to say if they did talk about the trade, I think it was because they knew everybody else wanted a quarterback as well. And either you're going to get Winston or Mariota. If we would take either, but guess what? If you want to trade up, you can come get them. See, so you may be right on that, Jackson. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and Kent kind of brings this up, and there's been a lot of talk about the messaging coming out of the building, new processes, because there's been some recent firings and restructuring and all this kind of stuff. Do you think that we're just not, this is how they're establishing their messaging protocol when it comes to all this?
Could be. That's what I said. This is their style. This is how they want to put out messaging. And, they methodically go just like they're going through the reports of players.
Because you can see that everybody's kind of saying the same thing from Callahan to Brinker to Berganzi, which makes it feel like a very cohesive unit, but it's also done on purpose, is what it feels like. And I think this is just something we're going to have to get used to, right? Everybody had to get used to the way that Mike Vrabel spoke to the media, right? And then everybody was like, oh, yeah, we get it now. We understand. We can all speak Vrabelese. Now we're going to have to learn how to talk Borg at this point.
We'll see, though. It's always kind of confusing and convoluted a little bit because if they trade the pick because somebody gave them overhaul, and they would say, well, that's why we never said that we were all in.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that's why you should have said it all in, because that would have made you get even more.
Be a sales. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Colorado Pro Day, and
what pro day? What pro day
coming up? Colorado Pro Day coming up.
Titans are going to be there.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. What does that mean about Cam Ward? This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls. And Blaine, it was announced this morning, alluded to by A to Z Sports last week, but it was announced this morning by Ian Rappaport. Titans president of football ops Chad Brinker and coach Brian Callahan won't be present at Colorado Pro Day. Having seen Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter multiple times already, they'll be part of a large Tennessee contingent at an April 9th private workout for both players. So, I mean, don't want to read too much into it, but that does seem very suspect after the large contingent they sent to the pro day of Cam Ward. You have not only just those two players, you have 3 NFL-level wide receivers as well, LaJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn, and Will Shepard. Now, obviously, you can send a bunch of other people, and they can give you the same information, but you would think that at least the head coach would like to get the offensive-minded offensive coordinator, play caller, head coach, would at least like to see these offensive skill players because, they've seen – Chad Brinker specifically stated that he's at least seen 2 games in person. That's why he's not going. And sure, they have film. And Brian Callahan has met with Shedeur Sanders at the Combine, has met with him at the All-Star game and all that kind of stuff. But, this seems a little off to me. And when you have 4 possible choices at number 1, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter, and your head coach isn't going the pro day of 2 of the 4, kind of feels like we're just down to 1, is Cam Ward.
I think it gives you all the signals right there. I mean, man, maybe it's just a huge gap, and but even the other players there. So I would love to see the other players there doing their workout too. Especially the receivers, in that we will probably take a receiver or 2, or even if one of them slipped and then they don't get drafted in the draft, that we'd have a good insight seeing them live doing their workout. So I don't know how many of them went to the Combine or didn't go or invited, but I think I would be there. Just never know.
So we're down to, it's a pretty much 0% chance as a show that when we're talking about what they're going to do at 1, to get to 100%, it's just Cam Ward and trade back in some form or fashion. Abdul Carter's off.
I think you're at 99.9. I'm at 90 now.
Yeah. Okay. So you're at 90.
I went from
so
85 to 90. Yeah, I've gone up 5%. I've gone up 5%. So
yeah. So it's still trade, but it's just there is no percentage or no piece of the pie for Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders at this point, right?
See,
at 1.
Right. But see, here's how I would be playing the game. This draft season of lies and all this. I'm probably going to send almost the whole contingent there as well.
Yeah.
Because guess what? It's not just one player there. It's multiple players.
Right.
So if, one of the high-level guys didn't go, let's say Brinker didn't go, I wouldn't have a big deal. You showed, how it is, and maybe you don't have a relationship, but still you're there present because guess what? People were paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh, the Titans may take Shedeur. Oh, they don't know. They have no idea.
Because what if another team has Shedeur Sanders quarterback 1, not Cam Ward, and they're thinking, well, should we have Shedeur Sanders way higher on our board? And these guys are still going to this after they're sending the same contingent they sent to.
They may take the guy we want.
Yeah.
See, that's how you do.
I'm with you. I
don't think they don't play the game right, man. I don't know.
It's really weird because because we're what did we say just a few minutes ago? We wish they would just come out and say that it was Cam Ward, but they're kind of doing this half in, half out kind of thing where it's like, okay, if you're going to be all in on Cam Ward, I understand why you're going to send that contingent, but just come out and say that you're Cam Ward. Right. But if you're not going to be willing to say that, then at least send these other 2 people and make it seem like there's some mystery there.
It's almost like they're not even interested. I mean, they're interested. Not only that, but they have other. There's other players there. So especially on the offensive side. That's what kind
of gets me now.
Let's go watch them live, even if it's not our high level. We got to send us a group of dudes down here to watch these guys.
Well, let me say this: so the Colorado private workout, because obviously Shedeur Sanders has already been to Tennessee. So once you've been to a visit in Tennessee, you can't come back. So the pro day is going to be, the private workout's going to be in Colorado. I do wonder if they do invite LaJohntay Wester, Will Shepherd, and Jimmy Horn to that private workout to see Shadur Sanders, because they're going to see Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter there already. Why not invite those other guys too?
Are they going to watch this private workout?
Well, yeah. Now they will be part of the private workout, but not the pro day.
Oh,
so that's two different things.
Oh, then now I didn't know that they were going to be part of that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now it doesn't matter then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. When's his pro day? April 2nd or so? Or 4th? It's at top of April.
It's this week. So and then the private workout will be.
That's what
I got right here. The private workout will be April 9th.
9th. Okay, that's what.
And they said it will be for both players. This is not the pro days, but the private workout is April 9th. Pro day is this week. But they say it for both players. So I wonder if they don't invite the other three too. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you just do all of them?
Oh yeah. Well, you would think that Shadur would want them there because he knows them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could just run your plays in your system and they'd run the routes. So yeah, I would think so. Unless they couldn't make it for some other reason.
But we're all still. It's Cam Ward.
Yeah, I'm 90.
You're 90. I'm 99. Jackson, where are you at?
I'm going to round it up to an even 100. It's Cam Ward.
You're just 100%. I mean, that's just what it feels like. I just feel the trade is so hard to pull off at this point. I think we'd hear more rumors around it because right now we've heard opposite rumors, right? Like we've heard that the Browns aren't interested in Cam Ward. Now, maybe that's just, part of the negotiation tactics. Say we're going to leak into the media that we're not interested in Cam Ward. We're not going to move from 2. We've heard that the Giants really have cooled off on 1 overall. So maybe some of this is politics, right? Negotiation tactics and all that kind of stuff. But I also kind of feel like if there was going to be a trade, the trade would have already happened. And maybe this is where their patience comes back and bites them in the butt. But again, if you believe he's the franchise quarterback, then you can't pass on the franchise quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. That's a thing in the league. I'm always interested. When is the deadline when they have to give Kirk Cousins his money?
They already gave Kirk Cousins his money.
Gave him, what was it, $10 million or
it's already $10 million.
Man,
but he's not going to waive his no trade clause until after the draft. That's kind of screwy for the Falcons, you know what I'm saying? They should have cut Kirk before the $10 million, in my opinion, because now they're going to wait till after the draft. Then he'll waive his no trade clause, and then what do you get out of it?
Well, hopefully a pick.
Maybe, but it's not going to be the pick that you maybe could have gotten in a compensatory pick if you let him walk. Maybe. Well, I guess not with his contract. But I do find it interesting that he's waiting. He himself is waiting till after the draft, are the reports allegedly.
Yeah, big timer.
Are you still interested in Kirk Cousins?
I would. I'm thinking other teams.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
No, not the Titans.
Not Titans.
I never said Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't won a big game. Name one big game he won that was significant.
Yeah, I mean, terrible primetime record.
Wasn't he over?
Yeah, he's...
For a while, he was over in primetime games for a long time.
Then I think last year he beat Mahomes. Who was it? It was somebody.
Goff. I think that was the big Goff Vikings game. All right. That will do it for us. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons. Hey, listen. Join 105 The Zone for a live taping of The Install with Greg Cosell, hosted by Buck Rising at the Analog at Hutton Hotel on Friday, May 2nd. And also, Football and Other Efforts will be doing a live show during Cocktail Hour. We're Cocktail Hour Entertainment. Be there live as Greg Cosell breaks down the Tennessee Titans 2025 draft, takes questions from the audience, and more. Thanks to Two Rivers Ford, Hattie B's, and Wholesale Supply. Tickets are on sale now, starting at $30. To purchase tickets, visit 105thezone.com. 3HL's up next has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. And in the meantime,
and in between time,
peace.